Kūpikipikiʻō. Stand here on the scarred edge of this island, where Robert Wilcox and Samuel Nolene may have stood in 1895 as they fought to protect Hawaii from white annexationists backed by the American military. Here, where Hawaii was annexed in violation of international law in 1898. Stand at the scarred edge of 1916, where Americans drilled and cracked the reef and bombed coastal cliffs to build battery after battery, housing seacoast guns, reinforced magazines for munitions, and command bunkers before being decommissioned. Here, where in 1933, Americans built a new battery with railway guns and another magazine before also being decommissioned. Stand here, where a tobacco heiress, once known as the richest girl in the world, built one of her homes in 1937 and ornamented her walls and floors and courtyard with the art, jewels, the prayers of Muslim people whose countries, whose homes and treasures are now gunned and bombed by Americans. Stand here at the top of Black Point, one of the most exclusive places to live in Hawaii. Stand here outside the outer gate so you understand only the wealthy residents and their guests can enter their 75 lavish houses, that not just anyone can live there. Imagine getting past that gate and standing outside another, the inner gate, the one that opens exclusively for those who live in the 8 estates on Royal Circle, where, as realtors say, the highest of Hawaiian ali'i on Oahu once lived, where an oceanfront estate is listed for $23 million and a Bali-inspired villa is priced at $14.8, where affluent Americans stand safely above the buried batteries of war, watching waves rise and break. Stand here at the breaking edge of Iraq and Afghanistan as the US military invades and raids their oil fields, as the US chooses their leaders and builds Middle Eastern bases. Stand here at the shattered edge of Raqqa, Syria, where 300,000 people once lived, where the US dropped 10,000 bombs to destroy 80% of the city through airstrikes alone. Stand here at the receding edge of Palestine as Israel uses US weapons to confiscate land by military order, to build military outposts, then Israeli settlements. Stand here on stolen land at the edge of fences, checkpoints, and guard posts. Stand here where international law is broken without consequences. Stand here at the edge of hotels and mansions, military golf courses over ancestral graves, adverse possession and deeds from British or French mandate, Israeli or American settlement and military base, from overthrow and annexation, population transfer, from strangers left to wander, ruins hungry. Stand here at the edge of return, return to our people whose blood and flesh and bone and hair, whose roots and seeds have been ground into the mud, the sand, held in black basalt. We, the Mauna, Moana, ʻāina, Ikena, Jabal, Muhit, Ad, Almerifa, here where we breathe life into ashes and become Simor, Alai, where we return from flight, from bomb and blood, from char and exile, where we return as rain and salt, as eroding wind, as these waves, as olive groves and oranges, where our lands are returned and we are returned to them. Stand here at the edge of truth. This is not the United States. This is not a US-backed regime. This is Palestine, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria. This is Hawaii. This is not paradise. This is not Diamond Head. This is Leahi. This is not Black Point. This is Kūpikipikiʻō. Stand here. Resist. Kawim ya sha'abi kawim hum. Resist, my people, resist them. From a line by a poem by Doreen Tatur. Stand in rage as the wind and current clash, rile lightning and thunder, fire surge and boulder crash. Let the ocean eat and scrape away these walls. Let the sand swallow their fences whole. Let this thick air between us split the atmosphere. scream and shriek and cry and grieve if nothing else. We have no land, no country, but we still have these bodies, these stories, this language of rage. And this resistance is bitter, but it feels like medicine, like our lands and villages are planted and replanted there, where it's dark and warm. We unfurl our tangle of roots as we write our poems, blow salt across these blurred borders of memory. So they made themselves fences and bullets, checkpoints, gates, and guard posts. They made themselves hotels and mansions, adverse possession, martial law, and deeds. They made themselves shine through that plunder. They say we can never. They say we will never, because they, and the hills and mountains have been mined for rock walls, the reefs pillaged for coral floors. And they say we can never because the deserts and dunes have blown away for more of their houses and highways. Because we can never, because the forests have been razed and scorched, and we, the wards, refugees, houseless, the present absentees, the unrecognizable, the diasporic, uncivilized natives, activists, terrorists, resistors, our springs and streams are drying. So they say we can never return, but we make ourselves houses to hold all our dead, engrave their names in the clouds. We sing, whole villages awake again. We crouch down to eat rocks like fruit, to hold the dirt, the sand in our hands, to fling words the way fat drops of rain splatter off tarp or corrugated roofs. We remember the sweetness and rise up through the plunder. They say we will never return, but they don't know they could never really make us leave. Makawalu. This is a place for the raging of a multitude, the nearing of a storm, some ocean in this wind, sharp salt flecks dulling the seawalls, clawing loam and basalt. There are stories for this place, gnawing as currents clash, spitting foam, waiting to be born. This is a place for giving birth to a multitude, for the rising tide of fire and smoke, for newly charred earth, stretching tendrils of stories like green shoots, hungry for sun. This place is a multitude, plump with possibility, surrounded by the fire and ashes and wings and wind of stories to remind you of love and the beloved, of longing and belonging. ʻāina Hānau for Kaikainali'i and Ku'ule Hiva Hiva. As it is told, there was darkness, the deepest, blackest darkness called Po, turning in her sleep, knowing what it is not to breathe, to verge between need and climb. He Po vale ke la, he Po vale ke ia. Her sleep was motherly, thin and uneasy. She dreamt of flying and falling. Her turning churned the dark to heat, to light, then to fire. She awoke and gave birth first to herself. He Po vale ke la, he Po vale ke ia. The earth and heavens turned hot and darkened. Stars erupted on her skin. Makali'i watched as the vale vale flowed from her and welled over it all, and everywhere and when was breath. He Po vale ke la, he Po vale ke ia. Eia Hawaii, he pai ʻāina, he mau moku, he mau Kānaka, he mau Kānaka nui Hawaii e, he mau Hawaii kākou mau a mau. Like you, these islands were born. They came from Kane, from Ku, from Hina, from Lono, from Kanaloa, from Haumea, from Papa, from Wakea, from Ho'ohoku Kalani, from Kaula, from Lua, from Maui, from Pele, from the deep darkness of Po, Hawaii, Maui, Molokai, Lanai, Oahu, Kauai, Ni'ihau, Kaho'olawe. They fed on water, salt, and heat, crawled and then stood up in the light. They grew tall and wide and turned and slept and laughed and ate and fought and shared in black and brown and green and red. They inhaled earth and exhaled mountains, beaches, pali, and pohaku. They inhaled sky, exhaled the rains, winds, and clouds. Like you, these islands were born, and every part of them born. Coral children, worm children, shelled, fish, limu, grass, gourd, ocean, and forest children, children of rock and vine and shrub and tree, fruit and fur. Water children of salt and spring, insect children, seeded, propagated, cormed children, children who slither, crawl, cling, and creep, who curl and unfurl, who hatch, peck, bite, glide, and fly. Rooting, digging, hill-building children, hiding, peeping, nesting children, brindled, speckled, tentacled shapeshifters, those with 8 legs, with 8 eyes, those with 4 and 2, those with fins, with Evie and without, tasters who sing their names and hearers who answer or retreat, children of howl and screech, of paw and claw, blind and sighted, tail and tendril, skin and scale, web and wing, stemmed, veined, and rooted. Children o ke au ike, a ke au nui. O nā mea ike maka ia, o nā mea ike maka ole. Older, wiser children born breathing long before us, born like you, like these islands. Born are mo'olelo, seeds strewn, the finest seeds of stars in the heavens, the seeds of gods. Born from ocean, from spring, from mountain, from pebble and shell becoming sand. Born from storm, from tide, from crash and foam bubble. Born from shoot, from leaf branch, from every body part, from beyond the body, from piko, from aumakua, from the darkness. Born from huli, from leva, like you. E ho'olohe pono. Every mo'olelo is huli, everyone leva between po and ao, lani and honua, mauka and makai, in the starred salivary space, teeth and tongue unleashed, pressed through the pulse of clenched jaw, quivering cheek. They part pursed lips, vowling every vestige of throat muscle, of larynx, of diaphragmed breath, of na'au. Puka mai ka mo'olelo, Hānau ka mo'olelo, ua mo'olelo no.